Hello and welcome back to Mindset Matters. My name is Victoria. Thank you for joining me for conversation around mindset, living life through a lens of resilience, presence, and gratitude. Let's jump into today. Today we're going to talk about fear and how we hold ourselves back from things. And I want to answer a few questions that I believe to be questions about fear. And it's kind of a quote of the week at the same time because I saw this quote and it inspired me to talk about it. So I want to start with the quote. And the quote is this: "We tiptoe through life hoping to safely make it to death." That is pretty bleak. And it's pretty eye-opening if you really break this thing down, right? We tiptoe through life hoping to safely make it to death. The only thing that is certain in life is death. We will all die. It could happen at any moment. Hopefully not very soon. And it's a scary thing to think about, and I know a lot of people don't like talking about life in that way, that life and death just go together. But I think when you kind of recognize that this is an ultimate truth of life, it can help you gain a perspective where you want to live your life to the fullest in a way, or you want to take advantage of the life that you have, because what's the point? If not to live, if not to do the things that make you happy, if not to experience joy and fun and give yourselves all the different kind of pleasures that life can give you and that you can experience. This really made me think about fear and, how many things have you almost done, but you were too scared to do it? How much time do we waste thinking about things and then we never actually do them, right? Or we keep talking about the things we want to do, but we never actually get around to it. So those are the things I kind of want to dive into today. One thing I think is super interesting about fear is the fact that it's subjective. Something that I think is super scary, someone else might be like, what? That's not scary at all, and vice versa. So when you think of fear as a subjective thing, in a way, you can think of it as something that you can also control, and you can gain power over the things that you're afraid of, if that makes sense. So things are only scary because you've decided it's so. And we've probably all heard of, or most of you have heard of, exposure therapy, which is used to help people who have large fears. What are those called? I have no vocabulary. When you have, it's like a deep fear. Oh my gosh, it's going to bother me, but I don't want to look it up. When you have a deep fear of something, I'm sure you guys are yelling this at me right now. When you have a deep fear, like clowns, heights. Oh my God, what is that called? I'm going to sit here until I figure it out.
1 hour later.
Claustrophobia, like a phobia. Got it. Having a phobia. So exposure therapy is used for people with phobias where they slowly start to expose the person to that thing in really tiny doses until they can handle it and it's not scary anymore. So when I think of fear or doing things we're afraid of, I kind of think of that as trying to push yourself to do it slowly if it allows for that to be a possibility. It depends what it is. So let's say, even something I talk about a lot is taking myself out on dates. And that's something that can kind of be scary at first. Or if you're kind of oh, I'd love to do that, but I don't know where to start. I think that's a good example of something you start small. Take yourself on a picnic. Then maybe you take yourself to the movies. Then you take yourself to dinner. You're slowly exposing yourself to that thing that you want to do, and you're gradually getting into it, okay? That's a good example of that. However, there are some things we're afraid of where it's kind of you gotta go for it and you gotta dive in. And I think this can also be debilitating, where you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting there slowly, and you're making excuses for the fact that you're not doing it, right? Like people who want to start a podcast and you keep making excuses why you can't start. Oh, I don't have the best equipment yet, or oh, my lighting's not that great. Me. Or, whatever it is. So you kind of make these excuses and you want things to be perfect before you're willing to like go for it. But to me, that's making excuses. So I think you have to be real with yourself of like, what is it a thing that you're just putting off? And what is a realistic thing that maybe you can kind of dive in slowly? Another example I think of is when you have to go to a new place for the first time, or you are trying something new for the first time. There's a lot of feelings of anxiety. You get anxious, you're nervous, you don't know what to expect, right? But after a few times of going to that place or doing it, you're like, oh, this is fine. And it just makes me think like there's so many things I feel like we hold ourselves back from just because we're scared. But once you do it, you realize in the end, it's not even that scary. Okay, like people who've gone skydiving or just cliff diving or even just jumping off the high diving board at the swimming pool. Like there's so many things that it's scary when you haven't done it, but once you do it a couple times, exposure therapy, you kind of get good at it and you're like, wait, this is exhilarating and fun and I accomplished something, right? I feel like fear is almost necessary in life to motivate us. What if nothing was scary? What if nothing made you feel some sort of anxiety or nervousness? It would be kind of boring because there's this idea of like when you're afraid of something, but you push yourself to do it anyways, think about how much more accomplished you feel when you do it, right? If there was never a sense of fear, life would just be boring. So I feel like in this sense, fear is necessary to kind of push us to where we want to get to. And we should also look at fear as like tuning into your intuition of, okay, am I afraid because I'm excited? Or am I afraid because it's actually dangerous? And we could talk about this too. I feel like this is a whole other topic, is like trusting your intuition and how to learn to tap into your intuition. I do want to talk about this later, but I'm still kind of experimenting with it. And I want to get more comfortable with my own intuition so that I can talk about it better. So we'll talk about intuition, but I think that's a good thing to start. Of fear, there's fear danger, and there's fear, oh, I'm kind of excited about this. Great example is when I did my Fight Twin Cancer boxing match. Fear, ultimately, right away, fear, nope, not doing that. But I tapped into that feeling, and the initial gut feeling was, wait, you're scared but excited, do it. And I did it. Probably the best experience of my life so far. So, when you're afraid but excited, let's learn to tap into our intuition and say yes to those things. So I want to go back to something I said earlier, which was about questioning everything. Because often when we're afraid to do something, I feel like we start putting questions out like, oh, well, when will I have the time to do this? Or maybe I'm not good enough to do it. Or maybe it's just not the right timing in my life. And I think this kind of goes back to this idea of making excuses and the fact that we spend so much time thinking about things rather than taking action towards things. We think about things, we talk about things. Humans, I feel like this is our biggest flaw, is like, yes, we've got this amazing, beautiful brain, but I genuinely feel like we think too much. Like you can turn off your brain for a bit, tap into just like existence and allow your subconscious mind to connect to the universe, and like things will just start happening for you. Like it's really actually quite simple, and I feel like we overcomplicate things. And I've read so many books about the subconscious, connecting with the universe, like how to actually control your reality, but based on how you think and how you show up in the world. And it's something that once you kind of get those concepts, like it's actually pretty simple. And I feel like we do really overcomplicate things, where we just spend so much time thinking about things, talking about things. You know, you tell your friends about your plans, but then we never end up doing them. And it's like, what's the point of spending all this time thinking about something if you're not going to do it? Or talking about something if you're not going to do it? And again, I feel like a lot of these types of conversations are centered around fear. Or we almost want someone to tell us to do it in order for us to do it, right? And while I think it's important to get encouragement from people around us, and it's definitely not a bad idea to ask people, hey, what do you think of this idea? But I think what happens is we end up leaning on others too much, where we almost want this sense of validation that what we want is worth it, but you can't really get that from someone else. You have to decide for yourself that you want to do something, right? So I think, again, we spend so much time thinking, and this would kind of go in the theme of like lack of presence. When you are truly present in this moment, nothing else matters. And when you can focus on the moment that you are in, whatever you happen to be doing, that's when you can take positive action towards your goals. If I'm just worried about, last week I should have gone to the workshop that would have helped me with my goals, but I didn't go. Now I've missed my only opportunity. Or, I was sick, so I couldn't do this one thing I really want. Like, stop. It already happened. Why are you stressing over it? Truly, if you really think about it, how dumb is it that we spend so much time thinking about things that have already happened and are completely out of our control to change? And it's not the same as reflecting on a situation so you can learn, but just thinking about it, replaying it over and over and over, and like wishing all the things that could have gone differently, or imagining all the different ways the situation could have unfolded. That is a waste of time. And I get it. I've totally been there. I totally do this too. But it's such a waste of time. And if we took half of the time that we spend thinking and talking about things and just focused on, okay, well, what do I actually want to accomplish? And even if I'm afraid to do it, what are the little steps I can start taking? It's all about action. Everything starts with the things you think about, how you think about them, and then what actions you actually take to make those happen. So stop wasting time thinking about the past or worrying so much about the future. That's the other part of this, is lack of presence, is being scared of, oh, well, what if I try and I fail? Or what if I say yes to this opportunity and it doesn't go well? Or what if, I go travel in this place and it's super dangerous and scary? Or what if this, what if that? It's like, well, that's the quote, we tiptoe through life hoping to safely make it to death. What kind of life is it if you're just constantly worrying about things that are either out of your control or things that haven't even happened yet? And I think this goes back to humans. We're so stuck in our own minds, and we need to stop thinking so much. We really do. Like, it's so great that we have these amazing brains, but like, shut up and just do what you want to do. Like, that could be the end of that. So I think about fear, and it makes me feel like fear is a good thing to an extent. We obviously don't want our fight or flight response to be constantly going, and we don't want to feel overly anxious about things, and we don't want to feel like we're in danger. But fear is motivating, because again, when you do things that scare you, even if it doesn't work out, you can say that you did it, that you tried it, and that's still progress. Rupi Kaur, I'm going to throw her in here. If you tried and didn't end up where you wanted to go, that's still progress. Progress is not linear. Progress isn't, I'm going to do this and then be successful. Woohoo, that's it. No, there's going to be scary things along the way, and I think fear should be embraced. Embrace fear. Embrace the things you're afraid of. Stop thinking and just do what you want to do, or start taking actions toward that thing. Because it all comes back to acting as if you are already the person you want to be. right? If your vibration is down here and you're like, oh, well, once I can get this done, like I'll be happy. You know, it's like your vibration's too low to even like get you there. But if you show up in the world as the person that you want to present to the world, even if on the inside you're like not quite there in the terms of confidence, show up as that person. If you're going to somewhere that scares you, show up confidently anyways. Present yourself in the way that you would at the end of that thing, as if you're already a master of it. These are like tips to trick yourself into not feeling as afraid to do the things. So I think fear is definitely a lack of presence, as I mentioned. And when we can be in the present moment, slow down, you realize that things aren't that bad. So in terms of actually coming to the present moment, this is something I've been working on for a year now, is how to be present and how to actually get myself out of my thinking brain when I'm spiraling. So something I like to do is create space to just exist, to like genuinely like calm my nerves. I just breathe and I just sit, and any thoughts that come in, I think of them. An analogy that it was told to me once is like, think of your thoughts as clouds. Like they're just kind of whooshing by, because when we're just first starting to meditate or starting to kind of slow down, it can be really clouded in your mind. So think of your thoughts as clouds. They're like, okay, if something comes in, let it pass. Just let the thought pass. Don't grab onto it and start thinking about it and concentrating on it. Let it pass. And whatever problems you have, whatever things you're afraid of, whatever issues are going on in your life, if you come back to this exact moment, like there's nothing wrong with this moment. In this exact moment, I am here recording a podcast in my bed. And that's me. I'm just existing. And I have no worries. I'm not worried about how many people are going to listen to this. I'm not worried about how many listened to the podcast last week. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm just here. This is all I want to do, and this is all I want to focus on. And this is the action that I'm taking towards a goal that I have, right? So try to slow down and really come back to the present moment. I think that's something we should practice every single day at some point. Give yourself a little time, maybe in the morning, in the evening, sometime midday, whatever works for you, but give yourself time to come back to presence, because that helps fear subside a lot. Because if you actually think about the exact moment you're in, for the most part, it's usually not that bad. Okay, if you're being chased by a bear, totally different. That's fear, danger, okay? Completely different. Yes, your fight or flight's gonna be on, and you're gonna be afraid and anxious and nervous and trying to figure out what the heck to do. So that's different. But on a day-to-day, we don't want our fight or flight, we don't want our fear to be so intense. We want to find ways to kind of calm it down. Another trick that I have to deal with fear is when we're kind of questioning whether or not we want to do something, or making excuses like, oh, what if this, what if that? Take the what if and spin it in the positive, like what if it works out, but create this like magical best case scenario thing that could happen. Because not only will it kind of flip so you're thinking positively, okay? I know people have said like, oh, think of the biggest what if, like in like worst case scenario, because it's like so unrealistic. But I don't even like thinking about that. I want to think positively. I don't want any chance that I'm somehow manifesting this worst case scenario. So what I like to do is I like thinking like, what if I say yes to this and all these things? So let's go back to my fight twin Cancer. My initial, what if I say yes and I win? Whoa, what if I say yes? Let's make it bigger. What if I say yes and I meet amazing people who I get super close with and I get to train with every week. I get super fit, probably in the best shape I've been in a few years. I fall in love with boxing as a sport. What if I win my fight, raise a lot of money for cancer, get to take home a belt? What if I meet someone super special and close to me throughout this process? What if there's some really amazing people that come to the event? I just shared things that were all true that happened, but if I had made this what if situation prior, those are all some things that maybe could have happened and did happen, and reasons that I should do it, even though initially I was afraid to say yes. So try to do that. Think of something that you're afraid of doing right now and be like, what if all of these amazing things happen? Because again, that's kind of you manifesting, like, that could happen. I believe it. So I want to go back to this quote one last time and kind of close on this. We tiptoe through life hoping to safely make it to death. I want to just remind you that life should be lived. Life is not meant to be within the four little walls of your comfort zone. Expand your horizons. Say yes to the opportunities that present themselves. Stop living in fear. Push yourself to make the changes you want to make in your life. Stop making excuses. And just do it. Because at the end of the day, what if it works out? And what if you have everything that you dream of? It's waiting for you. Like, go get it. Chat with you next week.